right, music fans, welcome back. It is I, Dave, the real music observer, observing real music in real time for real people, just like you right there, and just like me here. I wanted to do this video for a while, so here goes. This one is about Mr. Big, and I gotta tell you, there was no band in the history of rock music that I can tell it, just looking at history, that got the shaft more than Mr. Big. And hence, I think the music industry completely had a war on this band uh, right out of the gate. Their first album doesn't go anywhere. Their second album comes out and just blows the doors off of everything. Lean into it, and you've got, To Be With You, a number one hit song, which defied all kinds of logic. I know you had things like More Than Words and so forth out there by Extreme, but these guys just shot to superstardom. 1992, okay? Right at the tail end of this era of music that sounded good. You've got a band with Billy Sheehan playing bass, okay? Eric Martin on lead vocals, the late Pat Torpey, who just a great drummer. All around this band absolutely kicked butt. And ironically, their next album was called Bump Ahead. And needless to say, there was a huge bump ahead in 1993. They did release a cover of Cat Stevens' Wild World, which charted and did okay and got on the radio and was a good version, by the way. I love the guitar sound on that record. Cat Stevens, that tune has been covered an awful lot. I want to say like Maxi Priest or somebody else did it. Either that one or they did another Cat Stevens tune. But there are other tunes out there like Take Cover and Going Where the Wind Blows. Things like that just got no airplay. Herbie Herbert actually managed this band, which I think is interesting, at least at the beginning. But my theory, again, is just you've got this band that breaks in 92, just the house comes down. They're opening up for like Aerosmith and different groups, and they're playing huge audiences. I think there's an MTV concert somewhere where it's Mr. Big in concert, and they're just killing it. They sound as good live as they do in the studio because these are quality musicians. Okay, Billy Sheehan, folks, playing bass. He's insane. He's like one of the best bass players in the world. All right, and Eric Martin, you can make an argument, and I would listen to you all day long, that Eric Martin is the best singer you've ever heard. And then you've got the great drummer, whether it's Cozen or Gilbert or whoever playing guitar. This is a powerhouse band, okay? And by 1996, they can't catch a cold, all right? The end just hit these guys like a ton of bricks. Now, they broke up. They got back together again. They did some reunion shows. Last year, they came out with an album called Defying Gravity. And they do a song called 1992 on that album, basically reminiscing and looking back, and I've read in a few places basically what I'm talking about in this video. They just didn't get it. They don't understand how they just went crazy for 1 year, and then after that, they couldn't, like I say, get the time. They just couldn't. See, this is why I'm saying to people are telling me, oh, well, there are other periods in rock and roll like in 1978. No, because you still had bands like Boston. You had the Eagles were working on an album. You had all kinds of rock out there. You had Thin Lizzy. You had disco. But disco to me, especially when you consider all the music that's come since the whole rave movement or whatever you want to call it, the electronic music movement, disco was soul. Disco was R&B. Most disco used real instruments like funky guitar lines and bass lines, and it wasn't all processed and synthesized into nothingness. The story of Mr. Big is a story of how the music industry said, we don't want talent. We don't want a melodic rock band. And Mr. Big broke at a time where you're thinking to yourself, wow, these guys at least will carry the banner of melodic rock through the 90s. I mean, they were still fairly new and fairly young, and there was no reason for them not to continue to make great albums, which they did, but these albums were ignored. The music was just ignored. Now, not so much in places like Japan, where you go over there and Mr. Big is like, I don't know, they're like the Rolling Stones in Japan. They're huge. So that's my video. Again, Mr. Big, I don't know any band in music history that was just shut down. They break and then they're done. And without that kind of, say their next album flopped, go listen to Bump Ahead, which is the album after Lean Into It, and you'll hear all of the great sounds. They didn't compromise anything. Yes, they covered the Cat Stevens tune, and maybe the label said, hey, you got to have a radio-friendly tune. But by then, that song peaks at number 27, and then it's over, and it's just really tragic. All right, that's my video. I'm done lamenting. I'll be back lamenting more real music in real time for real people just like you right there, and just like me. We'll do it real soon. Talk to you then.